Who exactly is Urdnot Wrex? Why was he able to find himself climbing to the top of Krogan society despite spending most of his years as a mercenary? But most importantly, why is he the best character in all of Mass Effect?
That's why I love hanging out with you guys. Why shoot something once when you can shoot it 46 more times?
Greetings Spacefarers, I'm Michael and welcome to MTJ Disorder's Mass Effect Lore, a passion piece on all things Mass Effect. If you're into science fiction, gaming and other action adventures, then go ahead and subscribe and like this video for more. The grizzled veteran, sometimes scary but mostly cuddly Grandpa Krogan crew member of the SSV Normandy is one of the most lovable characters in all of Mass Effect, and for many, he is the #1 companion, period. There's a lot to like about this misunderstood senior citizen, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but there's a lot about his past and his former connections that may come as a huge surprise to you. This is a thorough breakdown of the one and only Urdnot Wrex. Urdnot Wrex is a famed mercenary bounty hunter and one of the few remaining true Krogan battle masters, a rare and dying breed of weapons specialists with an unusually high proficiency in biotics. His age is actually never established, making his date of birth all but impossible to accurately pinpoint, but based on conjecture and eyewitness reports, we can hazard a rough guess. We know he was born at some point either prior to or in the midst of the Krogan rebellions, which began in 700 CE and lasted for decades, placing his age somewhere between 14 and 1500 years. And that's if he was born during and not sometime before. So he is very old, and even then, age often seems to be no more than a minor hindrance to the Krogan. One of Rex's contemporaries, Nakmor Drak, repeatedly complains about his age, yet seemingly is no worse for wears. Even Wrex himself points out after a night of binge drinking and partying that a hangover is merely a slight inconvenience.
You live past 700. You start paying for a night like that the next morning. Huh.
And often boasts about the benefits of a redundant nervous system. Born into Clan Urdnot, Wrex quickly gained fame for his prowess in battle, something that is deeply revered by all Krogan, even going so far as to defeat a Threshamore during his rite of passage, one of the last to achieve such a feat. Shortly after, he became the leader of a smaller Urdnot tribe, one of the youngest Krogan to be granted the honour in over 1,000 years. This resulted in Wrex being one of the most influential figures following the Krogan rebellions, as even after the rebellion ended, most remaining Krogan tribes wanted to continue fighting despite the genophage and its devastating effect on their ability to reproduce, whilst Wrex on the other hand had different ideas that many unexpectedly were open to considering. The most influential voice calling for a return to arms was one of the few warlords to survive the war, and just so happened to be Rex's father, Jarod, which, as you would imagine, was quite a complicating matter. Wrex believed that the Krogan no longer had the numbers to go to war, and even if they did, the genophage ensured that they could not replenish their numbers quickly enough. Instead of engaging in pointless conflict, he led his tribe to focus on breeding for at least one generation, and called upon other tribes to follow in this pursuit. And gradually, other Krogan tribes began to come around to Rex's ideas, which predictably angered Urdnot Jarod. As a result, Rex's father decided to arrange a crush, a meeting on neutral ground, with all the Urdnot tribes present, and of course our boy Wrex, being the cunning, intelligent badass that he is, instantly sensed this was a trap. Nonetheless, he was all too aware that his absence would be seen as a sign of weakness, and so he reluctantly agreed to participate. It would seem even as progressive as Wrex was, in his own words,
"But when your father invites you to a crush, well, there are some laws that even we hold sacred."
And so, upon the Krogan ancestral burial grounds known as the Hollows, a holy place among the Krogan where violence is forbidden, the meeting would take place. Despite both sides clearly unwilling to truly come to terms, the meeting would go on for some time. Perhaps somewhere beneath the surface, the familial bond still lurked, giving both Wrex and his father a faint hope that an accord could be reached. But when it became clear to Jarod that Wrex would not submit, the signal was made to assassinate his son. Wrex, along with his finest warriors, were ambushed in a cowardly display, and though all of his men were cut down, he managed to escape, but not before sinking his knife deep into Jarod's chest, killing the once mighty Krogan warlord. With his father's betrayal, Rex's eyes were opened to the truth about the Krogan. Most would rather die in battle than try to rebuild their society. A sobering thought for such a traditionalist, warlike species. Realizing the proud warrior culture that once valued courage, strength, and honor had now been reduced to glorifying pointless violence, Wrex turned his back on the rest of the Krogan and left. Since that day, he has served no master but himself, working as a bodyguard, mercenary, soldier of fortune, and bounty hunter at every opportunity. And though this turn could be considered tragic to some, Wrex has had some interesting adventures in his life, including his encounter with the former Asari commando Alina, which he will regale Shepard with on the Normandy with a sincere fondness. He even found himself being hired briefly by Saren Arterius to raid a Volus cargo ship, though Wrex at the time didn't realise who the Turian was until he began working with Shepard. Tales of his exploits know little bounds. Even Quarians working on the most remote ships of the flotilla have heard stories of the famous Urdnot Wrex. After many travels, there isn't much that would surprise this old Krogan. Despite his brutish appearance, Wrex rarely loses his temper. The mere threat of his anger is usually enough to get what he wants. When his fury is unleashed, however, it is a truly terrifying sight. In combat, he forechecks hard like an average hockey goon, making all tremble like frightened children as the unstoppable force approaches them without even breaking a sweat. He is relatively quiet upon first meeting, but when he does finally come out of his shell, his words are direct, and often shockingly blunt. That tends to get people to listen. And he knows this quite well. This is just one of the many reasons I personally love Urdnot Wrex.
Go ask the Quarian if you want stories.
This lack of filter could very easily paint him as a ruthless, bitter old man, but when you consider his motivations, it only serves to show that he is fiercely caring and not afraid to do whatever it takes to help those that matter to him. He is the quintessential badass with a heart of gold.
Hi, Kenneth. Hey, did I get any mail?
No, and if you come any closer, I'll slice you.
Okay. Man, what a badass.
Yeah? Well, that badass just gave half his paycheck to orphans. Orphans with diseases.
What Wrex is most widely known for, of course, is his involvement in the events leading up to the Reaper War, and his work with Commander Shepard and the crew of the Normandy. Prior to meeting up with Shepard, Urdnot Wrex takes on work from the Shadow Broker, which brings him to the Citadel in order to take out a career criminal and gangster known only as Fist. As soon as he arrives on the Citadel, however, he is accosted by C-Sec, claiming that he brought contraband aboard the station. And though he hasn't technically, you can't really blame C-Sec for this. When famed mercenary Urdnot Wrex appears on your station, you have a responsibility to make sure he is thoroughly vetted. Naturally, he denies the accusations and proceeds to threaten the guards when they won't let him pass. Not exactly helping his case, but this is Wrex we're talking about. And besides, this is all an attempt to create an air of confusion, as unwittingly this is overheard by a gang of Batarians and Turians who mistake him for someone who had slighted them earlier, and appear to be seeking retribution. You can only imagine how this went for everyone. Let's just say Wrex would never again have further issues with Citadel customs. With a pile of C-Sec officers and gang members at his back, Wrex officially entered the Citadel to continue his work. Upon meeting up with his Volus contact, however, it was revealed the entire situation was orchestrated by a third party who had a vested interest in stopping Wrex from completing his bounty. We'll discuss the possibilities of who that could be in a different video. Regardless, and quite rightly, Wrex insisted that this complication mandated an increase to his fees, and though the Volus couldn't offer further compensation, he would make up for it by presenting him with an armory of high-end weapons, to which Wrex happily accepted. Then, ready and equipped to finish the job, Wrex immediately proceeded to Fist's residence, only to be ambushed on the way by more mercenaries. And as we would all expect, Wrex made short work of this entire team, using a little explosive ingenuity, with only one of the mercs managing to score a hit. And it wasn't even a flesh wound. This lonesome sniper rifle round served only to piss him off. But fortunately, Wrex does have a higher emotional intelligence than many are willing to give him credit for, as he quickly realized that anyone capable of landing a hit on him like this would likely be on the higher end of the payroll, and so he chose to capture and interrogate this mercenary, instead of adding him to the list of casualties. It didn't take very long for this merc to give in. I mean, would you be able to last with this intimidating presence looming over you, threatening to do who knows what? I didn't think so. Promptly removing his helmet, the merc reveals himself to be a former acquaintance of Rex's, a human named J6. And knowing he was likely not safe at the mercy of Urdnot Wrex, J6 spilled everything he knew in the hope he would be spared, and reminded the Krogan he had once saved his life. This oddly enough worked, and J6 attempted to play nice, even inviting Wrex to accompany him for a drink, though Wrex is smarter than that and easily sees through this obvious ploy to slow him down. This J6 is actually kind of ballsy. It's clear to see why Wrex truly respects him. It would have been wise to put him down, but instead he chose to let J6 walk away, unarmed of course. This is seemingly a trivial moment in Wrex's life, but it does show that he is not without mercy. In fact, one could argue that Wrex is one of the kindest mercenaries around. Is my bias showing yet? Anyways, Wrex finally arrives at Fist's apartment and makes short work out of his bodyguards, only to burst into the residence to find it empty. A minor setback to be sure, but understandably frustrating. On the elevator ride down, Wrex shares a ride with a maintenance worker who empathizes with the complications of their long and tiresome day, but of course, C-Sec would be Johnny on the spot after such a violent disturbance was reported, and Wrex, using his expertise and the unexpected assistance from this mysterious maintenance worker, escapes unseen. And this brings us up to speed with the events of the first game, as the natural next course of action was to approach Fist at his place of work, the dive bar known as Cora's Den. This is where Wrex would meet Commander Shepard for the first time. Wrex initially joined Shepard because their interests align in regards to Fist, and if present while dealing with Fist, he will immediately execute him after acquiring the information needed to save the Quarian known as Tally, to the shock and dismay of the teammate accompanying them. Shepard can either share their squad mate's dismay, attempt to focus on the mission, or approve of Wrex's decision, depending on your alignment. And this is some excellent writing. As a player, you don't know the complexity of this character, you've just met him, and these three morally opposed dialogue options can really affect your perception of just who exactly this Krogan is. He may very well have killed in cold blood, but you're either going to immediately judge him for it, or uncharacteristically praise him for it, a significantly black and white philosophy that could lead to a drastic decision later on, when the truth, as we have already discussed, is way more complicated than that. Regardless of what choice you make after Fist is taken care of, Wrex remains with Shepard either out of gratitude or because he wants to be in the thick of the action as Shepard seeks out Saren Arterius. As Wrex puts it,
I'm not in this for the money. I want to be where the action is.
I also personally believe that Wrex in hindsight feels a small amount of guilt over having worked with Saren in the past. But that's just my headcanon. If Shepard takes out Fist before joining with Wrex, he can be found in C-Sec next to the dock elevator and will offer to join the party regardless, after he pays Shepard for taking out Fist, one professional to another. If denied admission to the party... yeah, don't do that. Once safely aboard the SSV Normandy, Wrex can be found loitering around in the vehicle bay in between missions. He has very simple tastes. Wrex's interactions with the crew of the Normandy are very reserved, but clearly lined with a sense of intrigue. He appears to have an interest in biotics and respects the talents of the other biotics in the squad. He describes Liara Tassoni as an asset in combat and thinks the Alliance was foolish to stop using the L2 implants after witnessing Kaden Alenko's abilities. Given the culture of the Krogan, where females stay at home to focus on breeding, he tells Ashley that fighting alongside women is a new and intriguing experience, claiming it gives the battles a different flavour. However, like many Krogan after the rebellions, Wrex has nothing but disdain for Turians and thinks Garrus is naive. He also hates the Solarians, dismissing them as scientists who, quote, love to play with bugs, and aggressively confronts Captain Kirihi on Virmire when the captain describes uplifting the Krogan as a mistake. Should Wrex be on Noveria during the Rachni Queen's release, he warns Shepard that his people will clean up the mess, quote, just like we did for the Solarians, showing that though he is forward-thinking, there is still much about the old Krogan ways deeply ingrained within him. And then finally we come to it. On Virmire, where Shepard and the team discover that Saren may have found a cure for the genophage and is now breeding a Krogan army at his base of operations, Wrex, for the first time since joining the Normandy, becomes a potential problem. The STG, tasked with investigating Saren's activities on the planet, plans to destroy the breeding facility, which Wrex understandably becomes infuriated with, since he believes the cure could save his species. Shepard attempts to reason with Wrex, who likely isn't thinking clearly about this situation and as a result is adamant about preserving the base. In the confrontation between Wrex and Shepard, Wrex can be shot and killed either by Ashley or the commander if no headway is achieved. Otherwise, Wrex begrudgingly accepts the point that Saren would only use the cure to enslave the Krogan, and though he is still angry, he stands down and settles for reaping vengeance on Saren instead. Again, showing a very high level of emotional intelligence. This situation is one of the most volatile in the entirety of the Mass Effect series, but there are several ways of resolving it. The first would be to max out either your charm or intimidate points to allow for a renegade paragon check to calm him down. You can also achieve this by playing your Shepard strictly down one moral path. The most beneficial way of resolving this, and the only one that is guaranteed to work, is to have previously helped Wrex reclaim his family armor, which he tells you about after painstakingly gaining a rapport with him between missions. Do this and Wrex will genuinely appreciate you, and begin the path towards one of the greatest friendships in gaming history.
I'm glad we could help you get it back.
I might just be starting to like you, Shepard.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on!
It also makes cooling his head on Virmire virtually impossible to screw up. It's always so crazy to me to think that this could simultaneously be one of the most tragic or one of the most rewarding moments in the entire trilogy. For me, it shows how important Wrex can be in the characterization of Commander Shepard. When you connect this moment with the encounter with Fist, it highlights whether or not your Shepard is a rigid and unmoving person who sees everything as a means to an end, or someone who listens and learns and sees every moment as an opportunity to do better. So Wrex is kind of your conscience is what I'm saying. Case in point, following successfully destroying Saren's lab and then the Normandy's escape from the lockdown on the Citadel, Wrex believes stealing an Alliance ship is risky, though he reiterates to Shepard that he has their back. One of the first indications that Wrex isn't all hot temper and does have a rational and tactical side. The commander thinks themselves crazy for pulling this stunt, though Wrex assures them sometimes crazy is the best way to go. He hopes they don't get caught before they apprehend Saren and acknowledges Shepard's leadership skills in that regard. It's at this point you really start to see the respect and bond the two have achieved, cementing Rex's involvement in the battle for the Citadel and connecting him indefinitely with the fate of the Normandy and the threat of the Reapers. Shortly after the defeat of Sovereign, Wrex would leave the Normandy prior to its destruction, returning to Tuchanka to reclaim leadership of Clan Urdnot, a yearning that must have been present with him for most of his life, only to be rekindled by his travels with Shepard, and he would remain planet-side until 2186. Now, with a renewed determination to unify the Krogan clans and once again begin his earnest efforts to guide the Krogan toward concentrating on breeding. When Shepard comes to visit him on Tuchanka, he not only greets them warmly, he actively interrupts clan business to embrace his friend and happily chat about their past endeavours.
Excuse me.
Out of my... Shepard! My friend.
As it turns out, much of his time with the Normandy had resulted in huge positive influences, and he is now in the process of instituting a number of modernising reforms, one of which involves uniting a large portion of the Krogan under Clan Urdnot to combat the genophage and strengthen their entire species, using the victory on Virmire as a rallying point. By providing a neutral ground where discussions and exchanges can take place, Wrex has made sure that in return for their loyalty, he will protect those clans and safeguard their fertile females, making it unwise for anyone to attack. And though widely there is little pushback on these reforms, he does face opposition from Gatatog Uvenk for disregarding many traditions, almost mirroring his confrontation with his father. Continuing to catch up on old times, Shepard reveals that he has recruited a pure tank-bred Krogan named Grunt and approaches Wrex with a request to allow him to complete the rite of passage, and if successful, Wrex welcomes him into Clan Urdnot. If Shepard managed to kill the Threshermore during the rite, which hasn't been done since Wrex himself, Wrex will be impressed by this achievement, even remarking how Shepard ceases to amaze him. We then learn during Morden's loyalty mission that the Solarian scientist Malon, who had worked on the genophage modification project, was refused by Wrex after his offer to research a cure for the genophage, due in part to the need for the Krogan subjects for study, yes, but it does also show that Wrex hasn't forgotten the lessons learned during the mission on Virmire. This indicates that he knew Malon was interested in curing the genophage, though it is unclear whether or not Wrex was aware that Malon began working with yet another rival clan, Clan Werlock. Fortunately for Wrex, he has friends in high places.
You talk too much.
See? The human cannot hit a simple target!
Sadly, when asked to rejoin the team, Wrex reluctantly declines, as he needs to stay to keep the Krogan clans united and in line. After all these years, Wrex has finally found himself back in the same position he was prior to his father's betrayal, but this time with many more years of experience and even an added incentive to work harder for his people than before, the Reapers. Though the traditionalist clans are still there, attempting to sabotage his efforts, the majority of Krogan have announced their support for Wrex, and by 2185, Clan Urdnot has successfully unified most of the Krogan people, whilst keeping the individuality of each clan intact. It was a long and conflicting journey to this point, but by refusing to be an accomplice in the militaristic demise of his clan many years ago, Urdnot Wrex eventually earned the respect and loyalty of his people. It's his choice to lead by example that resulted in this eventual rise to power, and what would eventually result in the salvation of the entire Krogan race. In the next video, we will dive into the events of Mass Effect 3 and continue to discuss the strengths and flaws of Wrex's personality. If you've enjoyed this exploration of a beloved fan favourite, I recommend you check out the first part in our series on the Pirate Queen of Omega, which you can find by clicking right here. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Keyless ally, my friends, and until next time.
I should go.